HiSec Buyback offers a 90% JITA anywhere in HiSec. Simply go to hisec.evebuyback.com, appraise your items, create a contract, and get paid quickly.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Talking in Stations. I'm your host Rahne and I'm joined by our lovely engineer Nick. We also have a special guest today. We have Wrathful Hawk, or known as Hawk on Discord, who is the safety Diplo. And today we're going to do 20 questions with him around the mechanics of ganking and ganking versus griefing. And so, Hawk, would you like to give a introduction of yourself? It can be brief, it can be long. Just tell everyone who you are in the chat.
Yes, I'm Wrathful Hawk. I am one of the senior Diplo officers of Safety Alliance, which is a ganking alliance that operates pretty much everywhere in high security space.
Nice, okay. How long have you been playing the game?
Oh, about 10 years now, somewhere around there. Been pretty much all over Eve. Humble beginnings with Wingspan, flew in wormholes, did all that jazz. Went over to low sec as well, did some faction warfare, dabbled a little bit into null sec, not too much though, but then found my way back home in high security space and started my business there.
Alrighty.
How'd you end up in in safety? Were you originally in there, or was that the first one you hit when you came back to high?
Well, I created my own corporation, which is Clipped Wings, where I kind of added my own alts in there. Started ganking myself, targets that I had found on my own. Just kind of laissez-faire, kind of doing my own thing until, we had the Alliance CEO, Princess Aiko, contact me wondering if I wanted to join.
Okay, cool. Now I got a question. Actually, I got a bunch of questions. A lot of the irritation, if you will, with the gank community is the RP aspect. Is that something that you engage in, or is it just straight out pop them, take the stuff, move on to the next target?
Well, so I can see the how people can view it as kind of a role playing aspect, but we really just kind of hold true to the fact that we want to, kind of protect, the asteroid belts or even the mission sites in high security space. And we operate kind of in the same way that you would look at a large alliance in nullsec would operate when protecting their own resources. So we've kind of laid claim to these locations out here, and we act as kind of like our own police force, and thus sell permits in order for people to actually have access to these sites without just freely using it.
Okay.
Wait. Do you actually honor these permits, or is that just a scam like everywhere else in the game?
So, right, and that's a very common question, and believe it or not, we actually do. So if anyone has ever been to FanFest, for example, in many years past, and even the most recent one, we typically have Safety Alliance members and officers actually attend those FanFest meetings. Some of them are also EVE partners, and they actually hand out physical permit passes that have the Princess Aiko Alliance decal on it. And whenever someone is ganked, or if someone actually has paid for blue status, and there's a variety of different permits that we actually sell, we do in fact honor it. And it's funny we touch on this because just recently I ganked someone who was mission running. It's actually, and I found out that he was a streamer. I believe his name is Imminent Entropy. The guy was mission running, and he had messaged me in game saying that he actually has a permit, even though I didn't see him on our registrar list. He gave me a link to his stream where he was then holding up the permit that was signed and dated at the FanFest, at the last FanFest that he attended, and we quickly reimbursed his loss.
Okay, so if there's like an accident, because I have someone in chat saying that they do know people who have been ganked by safety, but if it is an accident, you guys will honor that?
Yeah, we do reimburse any losses for people who have paid for blue status with Safety Alliance.
Okay. Sorry, I
Okay,
didn't
yeah,
know
I mean
that.
that's to me that's like the definition of RPing, which is all Hey, it's part of the game. I mean, like you mentioned, the nullsec folk, they're definitely RPing their empire out in null. So, and same with wormhole folk. Those are just a different twist on it, and I can see how it would like irritate, you know, folk out there mining or mission running if that's their sole play style. And I got to bring up a minor, my early days, and I think it's probably one of the reasons I don't mind gankers at all, is when I was very new, joined that first corps that offered me to join, bunch of new players. Immediately we got war decked and camped in. I complained to a GM, and I literally was told to harden the fuck up. And and the video and that music came out shortly after, and that set the hook. It's like, all right, now I know what I'm getting into.
That's that's funny you say that because then CCP changed the war deck mechanics because they found that those actually drove people from the game, and that was why it was really difficult to retain new players and new groups like that.
Yeah, I mean, I was told get tougher friends, and and that's what I did, because I'm like, well, no one's running me the hell out of this game. I'm gonna keep playing. Now, one of the things that you had mentioned is that you're running back to Hawk. Sorry about that. I got digressed a bit. That you run a couple of alts on your own to do the ganking. Do the different gankers work together, like the different gank communities, or is it pretty much by yourself?
So we have a slew of a slew of discords that we're all a part of. We do have our major one that we all kind of communicate with one another. The thing is that we have interconnected intel channels where we have targets that have been identified, either moving from one place to another or is mining in a particular location, or what have you. Typically, it's difficult to cover all of high security space. As you can imagine, there are, I don't know, there's 2,600 systems in this game, and the majority of them, are high security space where a lot of the players are at. So it's hard to cover all of that. So we like to work with some of the ganking corporations and alliances, but the majority of the ganking community that you're familiar with is either already a part of Safety or works pretty closely with Safety Alliance.
Okay. One of the questions from Key Orion came up, and is told that safety and code are two separate entities, which I know is accurate. I don't see a lot of activity out of code lately. Are they still in the game?
Not really, no. They're kind of done. We're kind of like the new, and have been the true and largest ganking alliance in high security space. They were more so like humble beginning, really, like in the beginning inception of this game.
Well, yeah, they had the whole James 315 savior of HiSec thing going for them. That was their flavor of the RP, which was fun. I used to argue with them. It was just a lot of, you know. I mean, how can you not enjoy that kind of stuff occasionally? So, do you? I'm just sitting here, because obviously this is a new area for me. I mean, I've never dealt with ganking. Well, I've dealt with it, but I don't. It's not something I do. I was curious about,
Right.
Your average ganker. Do they hang with you for a long time, or do they come and go? The folks in your core or in your alliance.
Typically when someone associates themselves with Safety Alliance, it's more of like it's like they're kind of joining a family type thing. It's like it isn't kind of like oh, we're gonna do like a weekend thing and just kind of gank, and then you can go off back to your null sec or low sec, group or type thing. It's more of it is a like a true alliance where people are joining and then be a part of our network, where we start, you know, we dispatch people to certain locations, and they just kind of hunt in those locations to make sure that that people know that we're actually there.
That's interesting because you hit one of my questions you kind of alluded to there. Is I was going to ask if there's like, do you set up hunting preserves? It's like, okay, you guys got this constellation, you guys got this two constellations, or how do you kind of divvy it up so you're not running on top of each other?
Right. So we have people and corporations that enjoy ganking certain areas, and they make those requests, and we try to make sure that no one area is oversaturated with people, um, but we try to spread the love evenly, and most of it comes from our intel channels. I mean, to be quite frank, if you've jumped into high security space, or if you're sitting in high security space, uh, we know that you're there. If you've got cargo that looks juicy, if you've got a ship that's got nice modules, if you are, trying to do some kind of move op, we most likely know that that is happening, and it's in our intel channels, and we're looking at the opportune time to strike.
That's actually kind of, I had no idea that y'all were that tied in and organized. So that's kind of cool. I was wondering though, because you mentioned about people moving stuff and this and that, and I know like up in Lone Trek and the Forge up north, and then down south in Amar, there's always been these rather large high sec quote mining groups, mining cores that are 200, 300, 400 strong. No, not war eligible nowadays, and they're basically all alts from null groups, and now we're seeing that moving into places like Sync Liaison. I don't know if that's something you all watch and target, or do you stay away from those alt groups?
Oh no, we're very aware that there are large multi-boxing people that are operating 15, 20 Mackinaws like in asteroid belts. We're very well aware of these people. And in fact, we get other miners and other industry people contact us asking us to remove these infestations in high security space. And I can give you one example. In the system of Osmon, where ice belts frequently spawn, there was an issue with a player multi-boxing somewhere around 15 skiffs, a couple of freighters, an orca for compression, and then also had a mercurial that was bumping people away from the ice belt. And so that's one of the regions that I frequently visit to check up on. I was contacted by some industrialists out in the area, was paid around 15 billion ISK to gank the guy out of the system.
Holy smokes, that's a lot of ISK.
For ISK. We'll do that for the ISK because ISK is great, ISK is fun. But really the big problem is that guy was preventing other people from enjoying the ice belt. Right? I mean, people wanted to use the ice. People were being discouraged. They were moving into different locations, and as as a self-proclaimed guardian of these ice belts out there, I needed to solve the problem.
Now, you mentioned obviously in this particular case, someone tossed some ISK at you and went, "Frickin' deal with this clown." Now, had your own folk noticed it, would that still be the same level of target?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we will gank anyone who is not part of our blue standings list. If you're not registered with Safety Alliance and you haven't been paying for a permit or had some agreement with our CEO Alliance, then you pretty much are fair game for being shot and destroyed. So typically what will happen is, we're out there, we're looking, we're checking out like what you're flying. And honestly, it doesn't mean if you're flying just a bunch of T2 modules that you're just not going to get ganked. I mean, our kill board is very public. You can take a look and see, what we do. But for example, there was a month in the region of Genesis where we decided to just absolutely dunk every single orca that we saw, regardless of fit. Like, it was there. They were all T2. It was, if you want to look at it in terms of a profit gank margin type situation, it was a loss every time we ganked these orcas. But it got to the point where they kind of got the picture. They opened up a line of communication with us, and honestly, some of them were really, I mean, a lot of these people, when they're mining out there and they're kind of doing their own thing, they're playing a game of solitaire. They're just not really doing anything other than just either AFK mining or just kind of really passively playing the game. And a lot of the people that we gank out, at least in that time when we were focusing on Genesis, came up to us and were like, I have never had an interaction with a player like this. It was kind of exciting. Like, I want to get involved more with PvP, and we love to see that. We love to see that. And of course, we get people who get really pissed off, which is the majority. We get that too, but we try to keep it professional. I mean, you were ganked for a reason. This is why you got ganked. This is how you got ganked. And if you don't want it to continue to happen, there is a way for you to resolve that problem.
Okay, obviously two ways. Obviously, number one, which I'm sure y'all prefer, is get paid. But I'm curious, and then one of my things I wanted to go into is when you have target frustration. Are they, what are some of the things that your targets have done to frustrate the hell out of you?
Well, some players, when ganked, they kind of learn a little bit as to like why and how they got ganked. Target frustration, I mean, it really comes down to, a player pretty much learning, what things not to do and what things to look out for. I mean, what we're talking about is just a player getting better, just a pilot being more aware of their surroundings, about what's happening, and kind of getting rid of this false sense of security that in high security space they are just free to play as as laissez-faire as they can, right?
I had no. Go ahead, finish up, man.
Right. If we were to take this and if we were to compare it, right? If you were in nullsec and you were sitting there and mining, you would not leave the computer to just AFK mine. You would be very aware about what's going on. If you're in lowsec and you're in a Plex site, for faction warfare, you're not just sitting there and just running the site down to get loyalty points. You're being aware of what's happening. We can't just assume that when you're in high security space, all of a sudden, all of the skills and awareness that a pilot should have in this game just go away and dissolve.
It's interesting you brought that up because 2 weeks ago I had mentioned and kind of gave the anatomy of what, in my particular case, what had happened, where in all the cases where I've been ganked throughout my gameplay history, it's because either I wasn't paying attention, or in this most recent, I didn't miss the warning signs. I got greedy and thought I could finish up before they could organize the gank. And, so player awareness, I think you hit something kind of near and dear. Even though I do a lot of mining, I'm at the keyboard. I rarely, got the cooler next to me because I ain't even getting up to go get a new drink, And one of the folks in chat, once again, Valmir, said there's anti-gank, that there's no combat counterplay to it. Do you agree with that, or have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's certainly, ganking is not a type of gameplay or game style where it is just low risk, high reward. There's no counterplay, there's no nothing. You just kind of need to accept what's happened to you. That certainly is not the case. I mean, there are groups that have tried to, stop, when we're fixated on a target, they've tried to kind of stop what we're doing. Some of them have been fairly successful, but I mean, not for very long. But there is counterplay, and that's mostly coming from the target itself. Okay, I mean, sure, you can have a third party try to intervene in what's happening, but all of these elements are taken into play. I mean, we know we've been doing this for so long that we know that there are certain things that third party members can do, and we accommodate for that. And it never really comes to a situation where it is so bad that we can't, gank a target anymore. Mostly it is coming from the target itself that can employ or implement certain things in order to avoid a gank from happening.
Yeah, and a lot of it, I'm just sitting there thinking about that, and because you had earlier mentioned about risk versus reward, and sometimes it's not profitable. How much of that equation goes into your target selection up front?
Well, if we want to make money, we'll make money. If we want to, if the goal is to make ISK, we'll organize our targets to that. And I'll say that, in a ganker's, in their initial time in Safety Alliance, a lot of people will be like, oh, you know what, I want to make billions of ISK. I want to make billions. Like, okay, there are certain targets for that. You can certainly go after, people that can give that to you. And one example that I can give you is, just to kind of display the reach that we have. In wormholes, we were tipped off that a certain group was being evicted. Okay, and eviction typically means those people cannot live in that wormhole anymore, have to exit and then find a new home. But as all roads lead to Jita, we knew that at some point these people had to get back into Jita Station, and we ended up finding where they were at, ganked them, and got about another 15 billion ISK payout. So if people want to make ISK in our alliance, like, you certainly can make billions and billions of ISK just by taking advantage of our intel channels and where the big boys are at. We go after those as well, but typically what happens is you make the ISK that you want to make, and then you kind of just fall more into the we want to gank because you're not blue.
Oh, okay. In keeping your people safe. I noticed that safety's not war eligible, so makes it if a group got together and were like, all right, I'm tired of these clowns, I want to go, let's go rumble. They really can't, come after you. What's your thought process behind that?
Well, we don't want to take up too much space in terms of game styles in a high security space. We already have a great relationship with Black Flag. They are one of the predominant war deck alliances in high security space. They do a great job of what they do. If we started doing war decks, I mean, we'd be pushing on other people's bread and butter. We want to just kind of stick to what we do. If we did decide to do that in the future, I mean, I can only imagine the amount of destruction that we would just implement in high security space. But in terms of aggression, in terms of, oh, people can't even attack you in high security space. I mean, we're all flashing red. We're all
Well, you are after the fact. You're flashing red after the fact.
well, we're flashing red, but our security status is low enough for anyone to take a shot. It really isn't, something where you can't shoot me and I can only shoot you. We're there. You can pop off right back at us, but it's really just kind of a race against the clock.
How does that work with ganking? Because I know you mentioned you had a lot of alts. Do you have to reroll alts once they get so low of negative status? Or do you
So,
actually tag
right.
them back up?
So we will either tag, or we'll use, again, certain I'll say there's certain things that we use in game, it's certain environments that we'll use in game in order to keep the gankers alive until the target comes into a suitable position for us to strike. But
Oh,
tagging
okay.
is right. But tagging is very much, you know, a very common way for us to kind of keep the security status up for us not to get completely destroyed by faction police.
Chat's asking what your in-game name is.
Wrathful Hawk.
I'll type it out for them.
Yeah, go. Yeah.
They seem
Hey.
very eager to learn more about you.
I can't wait for the mails.
You know, yeah, you know, and you know, I'm one of those folk. I try and respect all the different gameplay styles, whether or not I would engage in it or not. You know, do I consider it legit? Yeah. And what I wanted to kind of morph into the question, and you and I had briefly, you know, chatted back and forth in text on it. When it goes from gank to grief, and that kind of brings up the whole hateless thing, and I originally wanted to talk about that earlier, but I think by allowing the initial hubbub to die down a little bit, kind of wanted to bring it up where I rewatched it after your note last night to me, that he starts right out with that it was a minor grief that was just kind of the last straw. And that's one of the first things he said. Now, how do you define where that line is for you and your folk?
Okay. So, and this is a fantastic question, and I'm happy to address it. So, the difference between ganking and griefing, and a lot of people get those two mixed up, because in the nature of ganking, you're upset. Okay, I mean, you've just lost your ship. You just had a pile of catalysts or stealth bombers just completely out of nowhere. You're caught off by surprise, and you've just lost your ship, or you've just been completely eliminated. You're going to be upset. Okay, you're going to be upset, and a lot of the times, what we get after ganking someone is we'll pull them into a channel. You know, we'll pull up their kill mail and we ask them whether or not they want to pay for a permit or whether they want to continue, you know, putting themselves at risk. You know, we do that so that we can show people like this was your fit. It could be a lot better. You know, we can work on this and just kind of become better players all around. But see and we would like that to happen, right? And that's what we typically aim for. But what we end up getting instead is we get some of the nastiest mails from people, like just grotesque lines of text. You know, people like asking us to go kill ourselves or all this stupid shit. And I'll tell you what, like it's funny because a lot of people think like, oh, you know, we're the ones that are, you know, sending these terrible messages. But I mean, it's just the reality of the you know, of the action, you know. And a lot of people then confuse griefing with ganking because they think it's the same exact thing when ganking has been a part of this game since the beginning.
And I think one of the frustrations of it is, and Keo Ryan points it out in the chat, is, you know, the line, all right, you pop somebody, you pull up a chat and go, dude, you messed up. All right. An emotional time, but is, you know, if it's a sarcastic way of doing it, it's hard to tell the difference between, you know, the RP side, or, you know, where's that line where it goes. And you know, and I can see that, you know, that being an issue. Is that something you've dealt with?
Well, not really, because it's very literal. You know, we will gank someone, they'll come into chat, we'll ask them if they want to purchase a permit in order to continue mining safely in high security space. And they get upset, they get pissy, they didn't realize that a permit was a thing that they needed to do in high security space. This is probably the first time someone's even interacted with another player in a sandbox MMORPG, which is just mind-boggling to begin with. And we respond by saying, calm down, miner. And people have interpreted this as the most heinous thing that we can say to somebody when we're quite literally just asking them to calm down and just analyze what happened.
Have you ever asked somebody in real life to calm down while they're yelling at you?
It doesn't work well. I've been married twice, I know.
If you ever want to start a fight, tell someone who's mad to calm down.
Yeah, but you should see some of the messages that we get from the and understandable, but we only mean good for these people. We only mean good. I mean, initially, yes, we destroyed your ship and potted you, and you've lost quite a bit. We get that, but we only have the best intentions for people, and it's just to be better. Just to have a more understandable fit in order to prevent something like this if you choose not to buy a permit from Safety Alliance, and that's kind of just how we go about it, and on the subject of Hateless, the guy, so the thing about Hateless, right? I mean, we've had quite a few interactions with him. I mean, he's been ganked, and he learned from that, and he actually, on several occasions avoided a gank. He's quite good at it. We don't have a problem with him. I mean, he learned how to avoid, being absolutely decimated in high security space, with multi-boxing at the level that he is. However, what did him in was a different type of gameplay that a Safety Alliance member used. They were taking a Macarial, or a fast-moving ship, and was simply bumping his Orca away from his fleet to kind of separate him from the pack so that he can be ganked. Okay. Now, the problem was that Hateless interpreted this as griefing, when really it's just, he was just presented with a little bit of adversity, a little bit of a challenge, and he completely buckled under the pressure, and then started making all these claims that we have been sending him death threats and, all of this, ridiculous stuff, and how he will stop creating content for EVE Online because of things like this. Well, I mean, honestly, when I looked at it, and first of all, I went ahead and I screened all the logs of the Alliance member that was supposedly sending him these threats. We found nothing, and we take that very seriously. If someone was kind of going out of the aspect of the game and was making threats like this, or was just being just a trash person, I mean, we remove them from Alliance. We don't tolerate that, and I don't think anyone tolerates any of that type of behavior in any game. But he sent no such messages. There was nothing really of the like, and really it just came down to Hateless was upset that he couldn't do what he wanted to do with his horde of characters because we were presenting a challenge to him. And his response was to, put the responsibility on CCP to, I mean, I don't even know what they would do, but to stop quote unquote griefing. That was the best.
No, go ahead, finish, man.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. I mean, really it just came down to he felt as if there was nothing he could do, and then slapped griefing to to the whole interaction.
Now, yeah, and like I mentioned, I rewatched that, and it was pretty clear right up front that he referred to that last one as a minor incident. And then the alliteration he went on with, I got the impression was past actions and not necessarily directed at that one individual. But I can see where, if you're high profile, where it's going to be coming from a lot of different directions. So I'm kind of defending. Go ahead, Rahne.
Oh, was gonna say there have been streamers in the past. So I think the easy example is like Marquis Dragon, who's been streaming E for like 10 years, and he's had like really bad stuff where like the same person will go only when he's on stream, only when he has a lot of viewers, and they will go and just constantly bump or gank or this or that. And then the past, CCP has been like, well, just change your gameplay. And he's like, okay, well, at one point, have I changed my gameplay enough to where the same person, I think it was only one individual, so it made it quite easy versus like a group, but it was the same person continuously harassing him. And it like went for a long time. It wasn't like, oh, a week or whatever. It was like a couple months at least. And he
Okay,
filed
well,
endless amounts of tickets. And like
so
that's
right, but let's dive into that, right? I mean, we're talking. You're using words like harassment when the guy is taking a ship and bumping yours. I mean, at what point do you draw the line and you're just really talking about you're upset that you can't do something as easily as you could before because someone in an MMORPG sandbox is getting in your way for?
Now, in the past,
if we want to,
well, in the past, and I'm going to use the bumping as an example, there was no defense for it. All right, now we have, I don't know how old it is, maybe 2.5, 3 years plus, where, if I set my warp, I'm going to warp in 3 minutes no matter how much bumping you do. I think the marquee thing was pre that.
Yeah, and so I don't know all of Hateless's background, so I can't speak for Hateless, but I know with Marquis, it only occurred when he was on stream, only on stream. So the moment he went live and the moment he was somewhere, the guy would come, and Marquis would switch alts, he'd switch activities, etc., and the same person would follow him. So I think that kind of shows like a bit more than just, oh, you're engaging in gameplay, right? So like I think Hateless was like what, he was mining or whatever and was getting bumped. So let's say he went out to nullsec and was doing like I don't know, ratting a nullsec or exploration, and then the same person followed him out there to do that. Then it's harder to say, oh, I'm trying to stop someone from mining, or I'm trying to gank someone from mining. Then it looks more like I'm targeting this person specifically no matter what they do because they're on stream and I want attention, sort of situation.
well, then why is it different when someone goes and follows someone in nullsec versus high security space? I see it as the same exact thing. I mean, if you want to look at it, right? I mean, you're not getting bumped in nullsec, you're getting killed. Like you're getting shot up and destroyed. You made that trek out there for nothing. I mean, the guy was, I mean, if you really look at his VODs and you take a look and see what actually happened to him, he had his orca sitting in one spot the entire time and allowed the guy to bump him over and over and over again without doing anything about it. I mean, there are so many ways that you can prevent something like this to happen. You can warp off, like you can set up a ping, you can orbit a mobile depot. I mean, there's literally basic things that you can do in order to avoid something about it, right? I mean, you can't just get upset and just be like, you know what? There's no counterplay. I give up. CCP needs to tackle griefing. This sucks. Like, okay, the situation sucks for you. I get that. You're getting bumped. But you are choosing not to do anything about it other than just cry about the situation. And look, this is not the first person that we have ganked or bumped. I mean, we've done this to thousands of people and they've learned. Like, we just can't we cannot gank them anymore, or we can't do anything anymore for them to pay us off, right? So it's.
Oh, I lost you for a sec, Hawk.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah. So I mean, you gotta. It's just like, I'm sorry, but he didn't. There was nothing that he did in order to avoid what was happening to him, and it's like it's just we just find it kind of hilarious that the guy was saying that oh, this is griefing, this is harassment, this is whatever, and I'm just like, well, if I was sitting in an asteroid belt not moving and just constantly getting bumped over and over again and not doing anything about it, maybe the problem isn't the bumper, maybe the problem is the pilot that's doing nothing about it.
We got a couple of folk in chat, little spicy. What are you learning? What are you doing? And I'm going to kind of use myself as a example. When we talked a couple weeks ago, Rahne had asked me how many times I've been ganked. I mean, legit ganked since I've been playing. And I gave the answer as 5. And I went back up and I looked it up. I pulled up my characters and found it. And one was in a level 4 mission when I was still fairly new. And, lost a Dominix because some guy warped into my third room with some little trash ship, and I took a shot at him, make him go away, and he returns in a Hyperion. Okay, I learned that I don't do that. No one had to pull me aside and say, hey, you shouldn't do that if someone pops into your level 4 mission 2 gates in or 3 gates in. Learned that on my own, all right? I looked up another one where I lost a jump freighter to a bunch of bombers in Jeddah because I failed to scout the system and the gate. That was on me. That's an expensive loss. Guess what? Hadn't happened since. Not saying it's not possible, but the player has to teach themselves if they don't like it. I've had a number of things happen to me in this game that I did not like. But you know what? HDFU. Figure out how to do it better. And that's kind of the tact I take on it. And I'm not everybody, but that's just one thing I like.
And I think the other thing too is that when we look at Hateless's video, we only saw one thing. We did not see everything. I know with Marquis, when he ended up like reporting the dude like 20 times before action was finally taken, but he had at least had it all laid out. I know I've been harassed a ton. This was actually out of game. Some guy followed me around on Twitch, endlessly harassing me, bringing up real life stuff, etc. And I kept reporting him to Twitch. Twitch hasn't banned him, by the way. Happened for a year and a half. He finally came after me in the game. And when I told CCP, I said, hey, this looks like one incident, but this person has been harassing me for the last year. Here's all of the logs that you need. I filed reports on all these platforms. I get it. You can't ban someone on Twitch, but here's showing that it's more than just one instance. And in the game, he was just following me around in low sec trying to kill me, right? Like, that's what I want in low sec. I want to PvP. But this instance was so much more than just PvP situation.
Right. Right. And I mean, looking at that, looking at the video, I even tried to reach out to him. Like, I tried to reach out to Hateless and just try to open a line of communication with him and tell him, like, look, like, you're getting bumped. There's a very easy way to avoid this. Like, would you like to know more? Like, I can help you. But he seemed so jaded about what was happening and just came to a very quick conclusion that this is griefing and that nothing is going to help. Which is, does a disservice, honestly, to his community. He's got a following. He's got people that follow and watch him. And that really just shows the people that watch him that, you know what, it's better for you just to give up because there is no quote unquote counterplay when there is tons of things that you can do to avoid a very simple thing that's happening to you.
Yeah, I get that. I think if Hateless thinks it's actual harassment, though, like a video, he could make a video addressing it, but the real thing should be between him and CCP.
Yeah, one of the folks brought up, an orca doesn't spin on a dime. Okay, absolutely. One of the things which may contribute to the frustration is you're mining in high sec with an orca and you want those bonuses, you're going to have your indie core running, which means you ain't going to move unless you're bumped. And, turn the core off. It could be as much as 2.5 minutes before it goes off and you can even start a warp. So that was just something I wanted to address because I think Key mentioned it in chat.
Right. So, but okay, sure, you cannot enter warp in a matter of, seconds. But in order for someone to successfully bump you, you have to just not be moving, and the pilot has to hit you at the perfect angle to send you flying. If he had simply put his orca on orbit and then around a mobile depot or something, some object, and then when he felt the need to compress, simply compress in a different location or even in station, where you can do that instantly and then return back to your normal whatever. I mean, I see nothing wrong with doing that, right? But he didn't want to move. He wanted to maximize his what was it, 500 million ISK an hour situation, and felt that with that small little adversity with a bumping Macarial, just absolutely threw his hands up and gave up. I mean, it's just there's just too much that you could have done to avoid the situation and to circumvent the problem, that it's just a ridiculous situation to be talking about how this is griefing.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me look through my list of questions here. Stand by. Rahne, take it away. Sorry, just threw the mic over.
No, it's all good. So there's been a lot of questions in chat about the counterplay. I know I kind of want to address that because you probably already have, Hawk, but like I get people saying, "Oh, there's 20 catalysts. What do you do?" I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the D-scan button. Like you D-scan for that.
Yes.
If you're out mining,
Yes.
Okay.
It's phenomenal when I think about it, right? It's like all of a sudden things like D-scan and just common sense awareness just go out the door when you're in high security space. Like for whatever reason, it doesn't exist anymore, and that it's you need to treat every single space in this game as the same. Like you can be destroyed at any moment, right? As the old saying goes, like if you undock from station, you are consenting to PvP, right? So you just need to be more aware. Honestly, if people use their D-scan a little bit more and people looked at local just a little bit more, which is really not that hard, a lot of the situations would not be happening, as they are.
Yeah, that and local. Someone in chat called out local. That's why a lot of people feel safer in null set because it's very easy to see who's blue and who's not. High sec's all neutral. It's like near impossible to notice.
If you're part of a corp, obviously I have safety, code, Novus Orda, and a couple others, set that I'm going to see their color as either orange or red when they come in. You can do that as an individual. You can set it as a corp level, or you can set it as an alliance level. So you can see them. Now the question, and I've actually got a little log book on the side, is there the scouts that they have there? They're the out of alliance, out of corp scouts that come through. So yeah, you got to keep an eye on them too.
Yeah, and I mean it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious. Trust me when I tell you that it is very obvious when you are about to be ganked. That's really kind of the biggest thing that I can tell you. And if people are not using D-scan, if people are not looking at local, and their awareness is zero, then you really shouldn't be upset that something like this is happening. Because we've done this long enough to know that people have learned and adapted, and they just become better pilots, and we can't mess with people like that.
All right.
They know too much, and they get away.
All right, now Jita's messing with me in chat because he just described pretty much what I ignored. Local spikes. I hit my D-scan. 20 catalysts. I'm fine. They'll go for somebody else.
Right.
And this is after their scout, which I had set orange, warped into my belt not 5 minutes earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, could I have avoided it? Absolutely. But you know what? I was down to 4 rocks, and by God, I wanted them all.
Yeah, do what I do, Nick, and just have your PvE ships fit for PvP. I go ratting in a Dominix, and I just fit like a long point on it. People try to warp in and gank me, and I just kill them, and it's so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, have I been on the receiving end? Yeah, obviously. Is it going to make me leave the game? Not happening. Been at this too long, enjoy it too much. And I do have to admit that those times where I've been ganked, the conversation has always been cordial after the fact. I've never had anybody come up and go, "Oh, you're a dirty miner or mission runner or whatever. You're all screwed up." It's always been, I got you that time, or the failed gank was like, "Hey, good tank," you know. So I mean, they're playing the game too. If you don't like gankers, absolutely, I get it, but they're playing the game too. Got to outplay them is kind of what I try and do. I'm reading up in chat. I think I missed a couple of key things folks were talking about.
Yeah, I've been typing to some of them. They're discussing. But yeah, is there anything you wanted to touch on, Hawk, that we haven't asked you about yet? I know we've been talking for almost an hour here.
Oh no, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions from chat or from any viewers. I mean, I want to dispel this. Like, I want people to really understand the difference, and so they don't start muddying the waters when it comes to this topic, because we've been doing this for a very long time. We've been doing this for a very, very long time, and if we were doing something wrong, CCP would have stopped it in its tracks a very long time ago. But we're within the confines of the game. We're doing everything right. We're not, griefing and harassing players to the point where we're having people banned and removed from the game. It's clearly not happening. So I'm here to answer questions, kind of, clear the water here, so that people really understand, what is actually happening and what is fictitious.
All right, we got a question in chat. How do you guys refill your ships? Do you build them yourself or do you use the market?
So we have certain industry lines where people manufacture Catalyst, stealth bombers, Taloses for us. We have certain contracts that we have with people. We'll put up orders in Discord for, say, 1,000 or 2,000 of them in certain regions, and they'll get them filled by whoever can give us the lowest bid, to kind of get them done cheap. We'll typically get orders filled at anywhere around 60 to 80% JITA, depending on the type of ship that we use. But we'll contract out those to people, and they get assembled, moved, and distributed among all members.
Have you ever had to kick someone from your corp or alliance for what you would for what you would think as griefing? Maybe not griefing specifically, but unwanted behavior in the game.
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. We've had to do that in the past, only because keep it within the confines of the game, keep it within the confines of the gank. The moment somebody starts going out of line, sounding off in either Discord or TeamSpeak, and just being an overall nuisance, we remove them. Because we have plenty of people who want to join that are not going to be just a you know a terrible human being, right? We have too many people who want to join, so we just put that kind of message out, like, listen, got to behave, you got to be the right person. We just got to remove them if they start acting up.
One of the folks was asking, in fact, I think it was Key again, doesn't want any names, but would like an example or two of what was over the line for you and your team.
Just taking it outside of the game, taking a conversation outside of spaceships in space, right? You take it too far, and we start, because we monitor these logs. We're looking at people's logs when someone and it's pretty easy to see when someone is kind of going off. We've removed people in the past when they start talking about or start trying to instigate some kind of real life response from someone that is just completely outside the confines of the game, and we remove them. I mean, it's simple as that.
And then another question. This one's kind of unrelated, but more of ganking. Have you guys considered using a different meta? So we talk a lot about like the Taloses, the Catalysts, the Tornadoes. Do you guys try different fits and different stuff?
So there's a lot of min-maxing that goes around when it comes to fits for ships. When we look at the Catalyst, this is a fairly cheap ship that can, put out a ton of damage. I mean, what has it got, like 8 like neutron blasters up in the highs, and then you can put mag stabs in the lows. I mean, these things can put out 800 DPS heated. So we look at we look at how much damage a ship can put out, how much it's going to cost, and then there is a fair amount of math that we have to do in order to assess how long it's going to take to get the target down, depending on their fit and the amount of time that we have in order to get them down in the respective security status that they're in. So if everyone, I'm sure everyone knows that, in a, the Concord response or the police response is different when you go from 1.0 down to 0.5.
So I think what 0.5, if I remember correctly, is roughly 18, 19 seconds if they're not already spawned. Does that match what you think?
I'm sorry, say that again?
That Concord response in a 0.5 is roughly 18, 19 seconds if not already spawned.
Yes.
And then all the way up to a 1.0 is they're pretty much there.
They're very much there very quickly. So depending on the security status and the response of Concord, you've got to use different ships, right, in order to apply the damage that you need in order to get the target down.
Povo, good info, thank you. He said 0.5 is 19 and if polled is 24. Good call.
Sorry, I'm reading the Excel comment with advanced mathematics for someone like me who just doesn't like numbers.
How could you not like numbers if you're in Eve? I mean, it's like it's a numbers game. But I absolutely get it. All right, I am out of questions. Hawk, this has been amazing. Because I don't think we've experienced or discussed the other side of the coin, or at least I haven't. And so that's why it's been learning, good learning experience. That the person on the other side of the gank isn't a faceless monster. It's not a horrible human being. They're just playing the game differently than I am. And if I intend to keep playing the game the way I want to, I got to deal with them. So any parting shots on your way out on the end of the stream here?
Well, all I got to say is that to your viewers and people in chat here, make sure you're watching local. Actually use your D-scan tool. There are things that you can do to help prevent a gank from happening. Okay, take it from somebody who's been ganking for a very long time. There are targets that I can't gank anymore. There are people that are very well informed about what's happening and very aware. There are ways to get around it. So just use what you've learned, okay? And you guys will be just fine.
Rahne, anything from you, young lady?
No, I'm really impressed. You did good asking the questions, Nick, and thank you, Hawk. This added a lot of clarity.
No problem.
All right, last chance in chat. Last chance to ask. Giving you 10 seconds. Well, be a little longer because there's a delay.
Someone says only you can prevent ganking.
Oh, I'm going to so make a Bison with holding up a sign. All right, to the chat and the folks there, appreciate it, keeping it lively, that's for sure. Miss Rahne for keeping me in line, appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. I had no idea what the heck we're going to be doing, but we'll do something. Have a good day, all.